Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 9th of April. Well, we're in the middle of more of the same. We expected that, if you got above that 23%, you had long opportunity, but, back below it. We weren't looking for anything spectacular because as we were looking at from our MBI readings, you don't have anything going on here. And now you actually have white returning back above. So it looks like we will fill that 47.85 range that's still marked on there. It's just a matter of time before we get to it. The dip below with the DOC under the 7.5 with the orange, it should be enough to help hold that zero support range. But, now with things being as difficult as they are from a broader global standpoint, the Chinese are not backing down. Now they're at over 100% of their tariffs. And it's not a sustainable situation, but Trump's not going to back down. But you see, all these other countries have already sent their delegations to start working it out, and they don't have a choice; they have to. So it's just one of those realignments. And this is going to create, a lot of panic, so to speak, and it's short-lived, but it's definitely got to be transitioned. And until it's done, we knew that they were already in a situation where nothing was going to change, given what we were seeing with the court activities and things like that, all the way through till the later, beginning part of summer, and that from an economic standpoint, because we weren't getting the move in oil. But this has certainly facilitated that move, which has changed things dramatically from that standpoint, at least domestically. That will be a huge bonus for a lot of people because their expenses will go down significantly, and that is best inflation news they can get. When you're not having to fill up your tank of gas and spending, outrageous sum comparative to before, makes a difference. So from an NQ standpoint, you can see it's been worse and trading back towards the bottom. But as long as that MBI white leads and you have magenta that, it's fluctuating this particular stage, but it's not all that promising from a broader standpoint. You still don't have a beneficial reset of the DOC from a steel standpoint. You can look at that shakeout; it's pretty clean. It's all deep red, which mimics the chart. So it's all in all doing exactly what it's supposed to do. From a Treasury standpoint, you can see the expectation is that the Fed, at this particular stage, is still not going to get involved, and that's causing a lot of back and forth. And now the belief is that at some point they're going to have to start easing and easing pretty fast, particularly if there's a credit liquidity issue. But who knows? As revenge, they may not do anything. So that's where the market's getting a little jittery from that standpoint. But see, here's the key right here. This move in oil, that's huge. It makes a big difference. Now, if that's, of course, got to be sustained over weeks to maintain itself. And then, of course, everyone's like, well, why? Well, the Saudis opened up their spigot, which was an indication that the expectation of potential war in that with Iran could start to ramp up, and people want to fill up all their reserves and everything prior to that. So it could be some cooperation taking place there, but this is definitely what is needed for domestic U.S. growth. So no one's going to complain about it as it is now, and everyone's expecting this much deeper recession now, even though we were already looking at signs from the end of last year that had already begun. But and of course they see this as a bonus for the euro because they have to pay less for gas, which from their standpoint is helpful, particularly since they got so upside down on their reserves. This will help quite a bit, and that's countering also the tariff situation by increasing the value of the euro. Makes those U.S. imports just that much more expensive, relatively speaking, but not sustainable for the European Union not to negotiate it either. And the longer they take with these things, the worse it gets for their own regular populations. The stagflation concept is the other one that you hear a lot of people talk about, and that's relative for gold, but the problem with it is not really a valid argument at this particular stage because you're not going to see the price rise, particularly with oil and that making its move, and that makes a huge difference, and you got to play that one into it. So a lot of the speculation at this particular stage is really just throwing people off. Bitcoin got even closer to that fulfill right there from the low standpoint was pretty much right on it. So that not unexpected, but it still continues to look ugly because you still have MBI white leading, magenta trailing. So from that standpoint, no change. And the question is, you got to get the orange back in between cyan and red for it to be a continuation of a press down. From that standpoint, there's still that one lower positive extreme from way back that's got to get filled, but time. It's relative to the players that do it, but that's why we mark them. They're there. And ETH obviously suffering much worse. So your bonus cash that was being made in crypto and that fading off dramatically. When we look at it from a 50K standpoint, it's pretty clean. You ended up with Magenta and them getting way accelerated, and then the breakdown. And once it broke to 33, MBI White started to rise. That was the continuation. So the move looked for 50%, but at 50%, you could see it was still negative from that. It held on for a little bit, but every time it dipped back down, that was your cue that, once we were below 50, we were headed to zero. And sure enough, we moved to the zero. Brief punch back early on, and then now we just started to see a significant amount of selling taking place. We're just about minus 90 at this particular stage, so the potential is that it can move all the way down with that MBI white spike. But you can see Magenta's right with it, so now it's going to be a question of who wins this battle. If MBI white fades before, and it's interesting because we're seeing rising shakeout within this. So the shakeout has to turn around lower if you're expecting that 0% to follow through. But you've had a nice reset with DOC from that standpoint. But again, not from a steel standpoint. So every time the steel moves above 13.5, it's effectively coming from underneath. That's a bonus. But as soon as it returns back below the 13.5, yeah, that's your negative run. And so it was pretty straightforward as far as how that plays out. And it's a matter of this has all been pretty clean. And, get their little short cover rallies, and then it proceeds. They've got higher price, and they start over again, particularly since nothing fundamentally has changed. But it can get violent to the upside if there is a resolution of any kind, and that's the tough one for shorts because prices can rise real fast. But then again, on the exit, they can drop low, but they tend to fall faster under the downside than they do going on the upside. But early morning chart, you can see it from the beginning of the open. It was just all selling. There was not even a turnaround. Everything was below the 23% all the way to the end of the day. Then you had your post-market push-up tried to do something, and it was marginally effective early on. But then this continuation of China not making any move for reconciliation on their end of it, that's going to prolong things. The longer that prolongs, the more unsettled people get, and unsettled people usually just sit on the sidelines. And the sidelines, that is your death to an economy, because when people are paralyzed and don't make a move, that's when things really start to get a little bit wonky from an economic standpoint. So it's a confidence question, and whether or not they can keep people feeling good about the drop in oil and things like that, lower prices overall for eggs and things like that, the bread and butter stuff, then you keep the consumer alive to some point. But the consumer was pretty beat up from all that credit card debt and everything else. So it's a tough one, and this is what we talked about, different regions faring better than others. And I think that's going to be the impetus going forward. So we just continue to follow the readings because they've been pretty darn solid. As always, anything relevant, I'll put on the Skype chat until Skype ends. Have a good one. Trade well.